Live or what? I think it's live. It's live. It's live. Yes, it's live. All right, so we are catching up. We're going to finally hear what Sanat Kumar has to say. Pr13 held a ceremony to gather all of the important intelligentsia, and then shared with him his insights about dharma. And then after he was finished speaking, the 4 Kumars showed up, the oldest children of Brahma, and the king greeted them, seated them, and asked them a question. And his question was, we can only really experience the external world, yet ambitions for external things is what causes us problems. But how can we have ambition for anything except that what we can experience? So what hope is there for us? That's his question to them. So are you ready to hear their answer? And by the way, welcome back to Monday. Or it's probably Sunday for you. That's Monday over here. Music. If you have karma of your forefathers, then that's also your prarabdha. Alright, so the child sages smiled lovingly and happily when they heard Pr13's words. So sweet, appropriate, essential, accurate, and to the point. Sanat Kumar replied on behalf of them all. So Sanat Kumar is the one who's going to do the speaking. But I think these 4 have sort of like a telepathic bond or something. Anyway, Sanat Kumar says, "What a wonderful question you've asked, Emperor, about the welfare of living beings." So it kind of says the same thing as Samantha, right? Samantha said that's a good question. And that's what the Kumar said. "What a wonderful question you've asked, Emperor, about the welfare of all living beings. Although very learned, sadhus always ask questions. This is how their intellect works. This is how you know that you haven't really made that much spiritual progress. When you still don't feel like asking questions. When you still feel like you're the one who has to tell everybody everything." So what Sanat Kumar is saying right now is that the sages, the king, the emperor, has welcomed these 4 sages very graciously and said very flattering things. You guys are sages, so we're going to ask you questions. We're very lucky that you came. What Sanat Kumar is saying back is, you're also a sadhu. You're also a sage. You're just the sadhu in the role of the questioner, and we're the sadhu in the role of the speaker. But sadhus take either role. Sadhus are great people. Literally, sadhu means great person. Sadhus, their hallmark is that they're very enlightened, perceptive, intelligent. But that can be in 2 roles. One role is where they're explaining things, and the other role is where they're inquiring about things. Both are the result of intelligence. By the way, this is why dual mode, not fixed or cardinal, but dual mode is the most intelligent. So Mercury and Jupiter rule both the dual mode signs. Because dual mode plays any role, the questioner or the answerer, and it keeps looking at things from different perspectives, and therefore always has new questions about things. So, although very learned, the boy said, sadhus always ask questions. That's a hallmark of a sadhu. They always have questions. That is how their intellect works. Just as you are happy to be in our company, we are happy to be in yours. So that's a very nice thing that he's saying. Now, you expressed so much joy about having us show up here, but we feel the same way about showing up here. We're very happy to be in your company because you're sadhu. The meeting of sadhus is certainly wonderful, because their questions and answers allow peace and prosperity to unfold for everyone. So that's called sadhu sangha. When sadhus have sangha, they don't do sadhu sangha is now, like what's happening now, where there's discussion, questions, answers, things like that. Okay, so now the king scoffs at the sages calling him a sadhu, so the boy explains. It's obvious, king, that you have real desire to hear about the qualities of the lotus-like feet of the slayer of ignorance, Madhudvish. This desire washes away the impossibly rooted muddy stain of selfishness from the inner core of our being. So what's the mark of sadhu? The mark of sadhu is that a real desire to learn. That's a basic mark of a sadhu, a real desire to learn. Then the basic mark of a high-quality sadhu, the higher quality sadhu, is a real desire to learn about something of very high quality. The highest quality sadhu, a real desire to learn about the supreme thing, which is Bhagavan. What's the supreme thing? Bhagavan. So they're saying you're the highest quality sadhu because of your questioning. Know the sadhu more in their questions than in their talk. Know them more through their questions than through their answers. The one who asks the questions which are on point and to the point and which inspire further and deeper discussion of the subject. That's the real sadhu. The king could not speak in reply to this, so the boy continued. Let me answer your question. So what's the question? The question is, people can only experience the external world, yet the more you get attached to something which is extrinsic to you, the weaker you get, the more extended you get, the more off balance you get. So is there any hope? So he says, let's stop the tangential back and forth about who's who, and let's get to your question now. So he says, we have carefully examined all the shastra and reached a definite conclusion. Bam! If somebody answers your question like that, that person is a guru. And of course, somebody can just imitate that and say that. But if somebody's answering you after careful examination of all the authoritative statements, because shastra means the authority, the governor, shastra, means the one who carries the scepter, the one who governs, the authority. So the one who has examined authoritative information and derived an experiential conclusion from it, that's the person who's fit to teach. Not a person who just takes magic mushrooms and trips out. Or who just sits around imagining possibilities. But the person who has investigated and examined the experience of experts who have achieved something in that field, whether it be Bhagavan or whether it be soccer or sewing, doesn't make a difference. This is the way that you find a teacher. So an expert sewer has examined all different kinds of sewing machines, all different kinds of sewing techniques, all different kinds of cloths and needles, and all different kinds of approaches to sewing, and has come up with an experiential conclusion about what works best. That's the best sewing teacher. Same thing applies for learning about spiritual things. So the sadhu said, look, we're going to answer your question, and we're going to answer it based on our examination of shastra. And here's their answer. They say the true cause of relief from suffering is to lose attachment to a self-concept that has nothing to do with the true self. So many mistakes about spirituality will be erased if you think carefully about what this boy just said. He said the true cause of relief from suffering is to lose attachment. Most people stop there. Okay, let's just lose attachment. Let's not be attached to anything. But he specifies something more clearly. He says you have to lose attachment to the self-concept. So most of the remainder of people will stop there. We have to have no ego. But the boy doesn't stop there. He keeps going. The true cause of relief from suffering is to lose attachment to a self-concept that has nothing to do with the true self, and to fall solidly and strongly in love with the conscious entity who is beyond all conventional qualifications. So muktir hitanyata rupa surupena vyavastita. The boy just paraphrased that definition of mukti. Hitvanyata rupa, to lose your attachment for all the self-concepts that have nothing to do with who and what you really are. Surupena vyavastita, and to become firmly attached to the thing that is what you really are. And that attachment is through love, emotion. And the thing which you really are is rooted on Bhagavan. So it's love and an emotional attachment to Bhagavan which makes Swarupena Vivastita. Not good. We have a good question from somebody. I gotta go check it out. Tasnimul Galip says, how do we know who we really are? Just wait. When the mirror is... like when you take a shower or a bath and the whole thing is foggy, the mirror is foggy, you can't see it, you don't know who you are. But the mirror gets clear, right? The more you clean the mirror, the more you clear the mirror, the more obviously and easy it is to see who you are. Cheto darpana marjanam. The cheta, or the mind, consciousness, heart, is a darpana, or mirror. Marjana, it should be cleaned though. Cheto darpana marjanam. Bhavamahadavagninirapanam. It will. You have to do practices which will clean the mirror of the consciousness, and then the true self can be seen in it. So just be patient and continue to hear Bhagavatam, and that will clear the mirror, and then you'll be able to see. But you already have a basic outline in the mirror, even when it's foggy. And the basic outline is, it's the true self identity is rooted on the true self, not on external circumstances. Yes, Flatlander. That's why she says can we get to know Bhagavan by getting to know our true selves? Yes, because that's why the Upanishads say Tat Tvamasi. You are the same as Bhagavan. If you don't have time to wait, you only have time to wait. You have no choice. Okay, let's see. But now the king is going to basically ask you your question. The king is going to say, okay, we're supposed to get attached to the true self, which means developing love for the root of the true self, which is Bhagavan, the conscious entity beyond conventional qualifications. Okay. So the king asks, how can we fall solidly and strongly in love with that transcendental being? How do you do that? That's basically most of your questioning, right? So let's see what the boy says. He says, he kind of gives him the answer I just gave. You need to practice some kind of dharma to clean that mirror. So he says the auspicious method is to practice Bhagavat Dharma by thoroughly and wholeheartedly learning the spiritual philosophy about the nature of all attractive Bhagavan. Worship the master of mystic potency by constantly hearing about and discussing him. So you got to do it through ear yoga and mouth yoga. Basically just hear the Bhagavatam, think about it, and express some questions about it after thinking about it. Now the king says, how will we be able to engage in this auspicious method constantly? So the boy is advised, well, you have to distance yourself from those who constantly want to do other things due to their relentless hunger for indulging in sensual pleasures with sexual partners. So the boy's advice is sadhu sangha or sadhak sangha. The boy's advice is that sangha, or your crowd, is important. The king's question is, how do we get free from suffering? Because suffering is caused by externalism, but we only have an external concept of life. Boy says, slacken your external attachment by developing internal attachment. King says, how do you do that? The boy answers, hear about it. The more and more you hear about it, the more clear it will become. The king says, hearing about it is difficult. I have a lot of other stuff to do. What should I do? Boy says, don't hang out with people that make you feel like you have a lot of other stuff to do except this. Don't hang out with people that keep you busy, constantly doing other things. Hang out with people who are going to want to do this. Because you do things in relation with other people. So make relationships with people who are interested in hearing about the self and Bhagavan. Hey Kermit, I haven't seen you in a while. Now the king has an interesting question. How can we distance ourselves from these people when we are those people? So Sanat Kumar answers, drink the nectar of Hari's qualities and you will experience a sense of satisfaction that is so profound that you will give up all ideas of other pleasures. So now he's saying, well, something here has to change the situation. The change has to start with you, like Michael Jackson says. The change has to start with you. You can't actually change. You won't actually even change your crowd until yourself changes a little bit, because things gravitate by magnetism. Likes, etc. attract. So you have to make a change to yourself first. And how do you do that? He says, drink the nectar of Hari's qualities, which means hear about Hari. Once you hear about Hari, something will click that it will make you'll become more interested in it. You want more of it, and when you get more of a sense of I want more of this, that will start to gravitate you towards people who want more of it, and then that will start the ball rolling of getting you more constantly or deeply engaged in hearing about and talking about, and therefore thinking about and contemplating and actually meditating on self, Bhagavan, etc. And then when that is accomplished, then you'll gradually start to develop attachment to the true self and disattachment from the false self. Now, King's next question is, when I hear about Hari's qualities, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. So, what's the problem there? How come it doesn't change me when I hear about Hari's qualities? I might as well hear about Gandalf or something. Some hero. So the boy's answer is the heart. The boy's answer basically is that if a sponge is really, really, really dry, then it won't really absorb water for a while. And so similarly, if the consciousness has a callus on it, if you have calluses on your heart, then it won't be sensitive. Like if your finger is calloused, like if you play guitar, violin, or any of those stringed instruments, you'll develop calluses on your fingers tips, so they won't be so sensitive to the pain of pushing down the strings all the time. Thank you, Hopi. Well, we have emotional callus towards love, because we've invested so much into the opposite of it. We've invested so much into selfishness and self-centeredness that we have emotional callus towards selfless love and towards hearing about qualities of others. We like to hear about our own qualities. If I stopped doing a Bhagavatam stream and instead I started doing a stream about develop mystic powers, become super, super powerful, become beautiful, make your butt bigger, make your biceps stronger, make more money. Let me teach you how to make more money. Let me teach you how to control the opposite sex. Let me teach you how to be a mystical woman and control the opposite sex. Here, I'll write a book about it and do a seminar. People would line up with so much enthusiasm. Yeah, I really want that. Come and teach me. Okay, I'm going to practice it. I'm going to try it. Because that's what we don't have calluses for. We're so interested spontaneously in making ourselves better, making ourselves greater, getting more control, more power, more qualities to dominate other people with. But if I say, let's hear about Hari, we will be like, that's dumb. Why? Why hear about Hari? Let's hear about me. Or let's hear about you. Let's hear about somebody else that we can imagine that we can become. Oh, okay, if you want to talk about Hari, that's fine. As long as you tell me I can become Hari, that's cool. So, in other words, we hear about Hari's qualities, or we hear Bhagavatam, and it doesn't work. It doesn't flip the switch. And the boy is going to explain why. It's called anartha in the circle of yogis who practice bhakti yoga. That's well known as anartha. Anartha is the callus, or aparata. Those are the calluses that are on the heart that prevent it from actually hearing something sweet. And so the remedy to aparata, just like if you have callus, like if you have a callus on your foot or something, you soak it in hot water. There's things to do for it. So there's things to do for the aparatas that are on the heart. And the boy's going to explain what to do now. And basically that's what all of religion is all about. And all culture and all society is about trying to weaken those calluses. And anti-culture and everything is going to strengthen those things. Selfishness, greed, modern culture. But real, true, traditional culture from thousands of years ago is a way to gradually weaken the callus that's around the heart. So he says, practice certain things that will make you more sensitive. So he says, cause harm to no one. And try to live the way great, peaceful spiritualists live, always expressly intent on remembering the nectarian flavor of Lotus Face Mukunda. Also, observe restraints on your self-control. Observe the restraints of self-control by living with minimal needs, and prevent yourself from insulting anyone by tolerating loss and gain. So he gave some practical advice about how not to inflame your self-importance. Because by inflaming the self-importance, it's actually impossible to truly hear about Hari. So the basic thing is try not to harm anybody. Because that's a beautiful way to reduce your self-importance. That's not destructive to the self. It's a proactive, positive way to reduce self-importance without causing self-hate. Is to try to do good for other people. Try not to harm other people. Don't take too much for yourself. Take the minimum that you require. Give. And don't insult people or hurt people's feelings. This is very practical stuff. It's so practical that actually if you try it, it will work. And therefore it's kind of terrifying to try. If you actually try this, it'll work. That's why we don't try it. Because we're scared. But try not insulting anybody for a week. Try to be really conscious not to insult anybody. Not to make anybody feel bad. Let's try this for a week. Then see what happens when you listen to the Bhagavatam after a week of that. To summarize, the boy sage concluded, we can most easily fall in love with that transcendental consciousness beyond conventional qualification by always decorating our ears ever more and more devotionally with the beautiful sound of Hari's wonderful qualities described by his devotees. This devotion also easily causes detachment from the self-irrelevant world of cause and effect. So he also made a point. Detachment from the external world is easy because the external world is irrelevant. Don't strive for detachment from the external world. It's not worth striving for. Strive for attachment to the real. The attachment to the real will immediately invoke detachment from the unreal. Don't just strive for detachment from the unreal. That will make you all dysfunctional. Galib wants to know if we stand up for others when others are not doing the right. Yeah, you do. Especially if it's your dharma. You always do your dharma. Okay, let's see what else we can fit in today. So the king was delighted to hear this. This is a really real answer. Like I said, this would actually work. And when you try to do it, I mean, if you're anything like me, I mean, if you try to do it, you will immediately realize why this will take several lifetimes. Because it's so hard not to be a selfish bastard. When you really realize how much of a selfish asshole you are constantly, every day, every second, every minute. How self-centered and how everything you're thinking about is you. How you feel, what you want, what's on your schedule, what's on your plate. It occupies 135% of your attention all the time. So, and when you try to think about other people, what's their perspective? What do they want? How do I care about other people? How do I not harm other people? You realize how far away you are from actual bhakti. But this is the real thing. Try this. Practice this. Trinat api sunichena taroriva sahishnuna amanina mandena kirtaniya sadari. Before you can do kirtan of Hari, you have to do amanina manadena, giving of respect to others and not asking for respect from others. So the king was delighted to hear this stuff. And so he asked, what happens if this works? If this works, then what will happen is the heart will lose its callousness. And then when it hears about something truly fantastic and lovable and real, it will be deeply affected by it. And then when it's deeply affected by Bhagavan and Bhagavatam, it'll gravitate towards it powerfully and get attached to its true self and the root of its true being. So what happens then? Sanat. Let's see. Why don't we leave that for tomorrow? There's a whole lot of new names today in the chat. So welcome to everybody. Or if you've been here but just not like posting. Nice to see your name finally. Yeah, well, let's be good and end it at a half hour. Any interesting questions? Hey, Lisa. So tomorrow we're going to hear what Sanat explain what happens if you actually get attached to your true being. It's a very interesting thing. He says actually even then you still actually need a guru to guide you, to guide the development of that attachment. So it's not just in the stage where you need a guru to get you out of your mess. Even when you're in the positive stage of developing your true identity, the guru is essential, so it doesn't develop on a tangent. Music. Do we have to help others, or first we help ourselves? It happens at the same time. You help yourself by... The self is helped by not being self-isolated. The self is harmed by being isolated, or pr13, which means separatist concept of self. That's what we have to be detached from. So you help the self by helping others, and you help others by helping the self. There's not a dichotomy between the two. When you have to engage in self-help, like eating, taking time to sleep, taking time to clean yourself, do it knowing that the self is related to other selves, and so this energy that I'm putting into taking care of myself is energy that I'm giving to everybody. And when you're taking care of other people, realize I'm taking care of myself by taking care of these other people. All right, everybody. It was very good to see you all. Hey, Tal. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, everybody. Wow, look at all these names. This is wonderful. Okay, guys. Here's another question. How can we take care of others when they resist help and are attached to suffering? You can't. You can't control anything about karma. Karma is happening as a result of things that are already set in motion. But you can take care of by trying to help. It doesn't mean you can change the outcome. You may or may not change the outcome. Of course, you do affect the outcome, because everything affects everything, but it may not be an immediate change. All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I actually have a lot of work I got to do today, so yeah, I'm going to leave on time.